of Jane Wenham, the Witch of Walkern. This show started in quite a traditional theatre space, so Watford Palace Theatre, which is an end-on cross-arch theatre, and it's ended in the Arcola Theatre, which where the audience are on three sides. And along its journey, it's been in lots of different spaces, from community halls to very small, intimate, almost like someone's front living room type of space when we did a rural tour, to much larger and more conventional spaces such as Salisbury Playhouse, Wishwater Playhouse, and Liverpool Everyman. So one of the big challenges of making this production, both design-wise and story-wise, was making sure that it was able to adapt to the different locations and venues that it was visiting. So for us, myself and the creative team, we had to make sure that that it was adaptable, that the set that we created and the world that we created could stand up in whatever space it went to. So the show has moved from being created as an end-on production to landing at the Arcola Theatre, which has audience on three sides. So what we've had to do as a company and as a team has been to reblock and reimagine various elements of the show. Because of the intimacy of this space compared to the slightly larger, more conventional spaces that we've been to on tour, it has felt like it's been much more about supporting and creating an environment for the audience to share in at the Arcola, rather than depending on constant images to do that work all the way through. So it is a space which absolutely draws the audience into kind of sharing the atmosphere and environments of the world and the play, and it is very exciting.
I'm Rebecca Lenkiewicz, and I wrote Jane Wenham, the Witch of Walkern. Writing the play was a challenge just because we know, or I knew very little about the time, and you're dealing with quite a different psychology. And I suppose as a writer you want the language to feel of the time, but you don't want it to become a barrier either. So I didn't want the play to feel like it was in sepia, or that it was the peasants of the village. I wanted it to feel very much like modern people, or not modern people, but universal sensibilities of love, loss, yearnings. So language is very delicate in that you want it to feel immediate and you don't want any barrier. But by using certain words of the time, you're almost subconsciously telling people that we are not of the year 2016. And to do that, the only reliable texts are of that time. So there were useful texts like the pamphlet Against Witches by Francis Hutchinson. So you get certain words, necromancer, and the Bible, of course, is rich for language. And so it's about weaving a certain modernity so that people are drawn in, and at the same time feeling authentic, so that there's nothing too clashing in the script.
My name is David Acton, and I play two parts in Jane Wenham. I play Francis Hutchinson, who's the Bishop of Down and Connor, who is here for a period of rest and recuperation before he goes back home to Ireland. And I also play a local villager called Saul. He is, he's very different. He's the complete opposite, really. He's a drunk and he's very bigoted and narrow-minded. The playing of the two characters, obviously when you've got two parts that are so completely contrasting, there's not a problem of trying to think, well, how am I going to play this part? How am I going to differentiate from that part? If they're both very similar. But in this case, they're very, very different. The bishop speaks I speak in my own voice. I have ruffs and necks and long, smart dress coat, and it's very easy. And Saul he's got an accent, so that immediately makes him different. He's a labourer. So, and I always think of him, the one thing I do think about Saul is he's got big hands, much bigger than mine. I've got quite small hands myself. They're the same size as the bishop's. But for Saul, I think of them as big hands. So that kind of affects the way he moves. They're like kind of big paddles on the end of him. And that has sort of affected the whole way he kind of gets up, touches the table, touches chairs, and moves himself around. Very different from the bishop, who could just stand up and sit down, and his hands are just before coming to rehearsal, that you begin to get to know the characters, begin to find your way around them, and then it's just a matter of all sorts of different things. It's whether it's working out the blocking, discussing backstory, thinking of physicality, thinking of the way someone talks, the way they speak, have they got a high voice, low voice, fast rhythm, slow rhythm, notes, a note from a director of, try playing that line in such and such a way. Oh, that's an idea, let's try that. Oh gosh, and that can be open up a whole new area early on in rehearsal as to a way the character is. And so it's absolutely everything. It's a mass of different things that go into the creation and building of the character that you play.
Hi, my name's Kat Simmons and I play Kemi Martha. Kemi Martha is from a small fishing village in the Caribbean, and she's stolen away to Virginia plantation and subjugated for 10 years. There's lots of evidence to say that there were people from all backgrounds and all races around in this time. When it comes to fiction, and especially writing a play that's, even though it's historical, as contemporary as this, and that parallels with things that are happening today, I think there is room to create characters of diversity in there, without a doubt. And the fact that it happened to be Kemi Martha from the Caribbean, which kind of makes sense because the slave trade was at its height then, and London, the majority of England was built on the back of the slave trade. I think it's a really good story to kind of pull in.